Alright, I think this is it. It only took me 5 years? It's been 5 years already? I don't know how long I've used the name Tallie Lynch or Simp account, but this is it. This is the video where I talk about retconning a very obvious character's death. But we'll see how it goes. I don't script these. I don't even take notes. I just kind of think about him for a little bit and then decide to start talking. And then I fidget a bunch and I look away from the camera because I don't know how to talk in front of a camera. I just look at the monitor. So I'll probably get really rambly, but hopefully some good ideas get spit out. My room's disgusting. Please ignore it. It's a work in progress. It's gross. It's terrible. I need to clean it. I would definitely recommend listening to this audio only, so that you don't have to look at my ugly face for the whole time, for however long this will be. But getting into it, I guess we should talk about why I would want them to, or if I would want them to. If is a much better starting point. Character deaths are very important in storytelling. I don't think that's a controversial or very big take. Obviously, that it's a good stakes to have. It's a, especially in something like Star Wars, it's a good grounding method to keep the story semi-serious. You know, I can't even think of a franchise off the top of my head that doesn't, use death in some storytelling way. Maybe some, like preschooler shows or something. But killing a character is like a big thing, Why specifically? I would want them to bring back some random A-Wing pilot over anybody else. It's a good question. I hope I can manage my thoughts well enough to form a cohesive statement on the topic, which I might not be able to. This is take one, but we really should look at the history of retconning in Star Wars, and it's a very one that I don't know much about, except for two very big ones. The first one obviously being Star Wars Legends. Star Wars, the entire expanded universe was... This is tricky. It wasn't really retconned. It wasn't a retcon. It was just Disney saying, we're not going to build off of this anymore. We're going to make our own stories now. It wasn't... It still exists in its own continuity. It's not gone. It's still there. You can go read the Legends books. Disney didn't burn every Legends book on the market. They aren't making new stories for it, which I suppose in itself is its own death, that no more official stories will be made for Star Wars Legends, for the original expanded universe. But Star Wars Legends didn't have a lot more to tell, really, if you think about it. They went up to, 120 years after the Battle of Yavin? Like, at some point, you're just going on to go on, I'm not really sure how much more there was to add. The stories had been fleshed out. I know a lot of people wanted, like, the new trilogy to be like a remake of, like, Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy. That would have... No, don't do that. Those stories have already been told. It would not be worth the time and effort, from an artistic standpoint, to retell a story that someone has already told to what many believe to be perfection. It had already had comics, I think it had a comic adaptation. The point is, why rehash something, And then immediately people go to the comments, so this equals rehash the original. Kind of. The Force Awakens is kind of just A New Hope, but in a way that I think respected A New Hope without... it wasn't identical to A New Hope. We have to... there are some key differences, mainly in the eventuality of these characters, which is very important to consider when we talk about these kinds of things. Where does the story actually go from there? Does it have a similar starting point, and then it just stays the same throughout, or does it actually change and evolve throughout the course of the trilogy? Which it did. It did. A little bit. I only saw 9 once. Well, I'll have to watch that again. Thankfully, the quality of the sequel films... Turtle, what are you doing? Calm down. The quality of the sequel films is not what's being questioned here. It's... At what point is it okay to retcon a character death? And many people probably clicked on this video immediately assuming that I am going to dick ride Tallie being retconned till my last breath, and that I will accept no alternative endings. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that a little bit. I will give my take on how it could be handled properly. Give an example of how I think it could be done right without blatantly disrespecting the people who tell these stories. And there has been her death has been used, like, to further thematically that's not the right fucking phrase, as a thematic vessel, we'll say, specifically for Poe in the junior novelization of The Rise of Skywalker, and that they made a new character, kind of. They gave Tallie a sister, Callie. Real fucking original, guys. Just change one letter, whatever. Not the point, okay? It's Star Wars. People have weird fucking names. We can't bully people for that. But joking aside, it's during Exegol, before Lando arrives with his fleet of people, and she's in an A-wing, obviously. And she basically gets swarmed by a bunch of TIE fighters and gets blown up. And Poe's like, oh, big sad. Oh, they both died. This is so sad. I'm so sad about this. And then Lando shows up and has the big thing happens. The Star Wars theme plays. Everybody's happy again. We all forget what happened. But, and it was very much to demonstrate the brutality of war and how entire generations can be, like, wiped out from a family in a war. So, to retcon Tallie's death when it's already been used in a thematic sense like that, where it is essentially required that she dies in order to maintain that thematic beat. I think obviously the specific example couldn't work, right? But you could adapt it. You could do that. Tallie was the leader of Blue Squadron. There's like 20 of those. Every fucking Star Wars movie has a new Blue Squadron. But in The Last Jedi, the blue X-Wings and A-Wings you see in The Last Jedi is her squadron. And it's basically confirmed that they all die. I think it's confirmed that they all died. We know that her wingman Stark, played by Noah Sagan, died. I think that was confirmed by Lucasfilm. It was her and him were he's the guy that, like, pounds on the thing and then she gives the little salute, and they both blow up. Rip. L plus ratio. They got Kylo Ren got his 5 kill streak in Modern Warfare 2 and dropped the Predator missile into the hangar bay. Excellent multi-kill. Could not have done better myself, I will say, as a lifelong Modern Warfare 2 player. And in the Last Jedi novelization, thank you, Price, my beloved, for giving me the little excerpt from that. We know that before they jump to hyperspace, the bomber fleet gets wiped out, right? Like that's like a big point. Leia assaults Poe over it, and it's they're like before they go into the hangar, Tallie and the other squad, they're like napping in like the break room or something, and she's like having nightmares about like the bomber fleet and stuff, and she's got very clearly alluding to like some kind of like PTSD. And I think that if they were to retcon Tallie's death, you could build upon that in a very, if done properly, um, a very substantive way. Star Wars, again, The Last Jedi kind of did this with Luke Skywalker, but in more of a personal way. His failings with Ben Solo and how he became Kylo Ren and how he feels responsible for that. But it never really shows the shell shock. For those of you who don't know, shell shock was basically what PTSD was called before it was called PTSD, and I refer to it as shell shock because that's more descriptive of the actual war scenario itself. The films rarely, if ever, show that. The Clone Wars, with the clones, the and the Bad Batch 2 have alluded to it. And Kenobi did an excellent job, in my opinion, of Obi-Wan's distress and trauma from Revenge of the Sith. I think it did. As someone who's had, I've never had. Obviously, I don't have PTSD. I don't have anything like that serious, but I have had anxiety before. I have had panic attacks before, and it really did feel, to me at least, someone who hasn't. Again, full disclosure, I haven't experienced like a deeply traumatic event before, but as someone who has suffered with anxiety and Asperger's and that kind of thing, I think it did a good job. Another thing is Obi-Wan is a Disney Plus show meant for people of all ages, so I don't expect them to go full into like the deep mental trauma. You know, it gets much more. I know it gets much more serious than what is often displayed, but I think if they were going to retcon Tallie's death, and we could go over all fucking day how she could have lived, like, from a physical standpoint. Like, it's fucking Star Wars. Do whatever you want. People live worse, but, off topic a little bit. But, I'm more concerned with the storytelling aspect of it. Hot take incoming, The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie. I do think that from a quality standpoint and from a storytelling standpoint, it is possibly the greatest in terms of what it sets out to do and how it does it. Rian Johnson is an incredible filmmaker. Even people who don't like The Last Jedi admit this. They say this, especially with Knives Out and Glass Onion. Rian Johnson is a phenomenal storyteller. And I'm sure there were things he wanted to do that he didn't get to do. I'm sure if he was allowed to make a 3-hour movie, we'd get a pretty good character arc for Tallie. But alas, you do have to focus on the main characters. And as much as I hate to say it, Tallie was not a main character. You can argue that she was almost like set up to be like a Wedge character, a Wedge Antilles-like character. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But getting back to the point at hand. This is so rambly. Oh my god. I've already been recording for... This video is already going to be twice as long as the other one. I should get going. I should get this thing into full gear. The point is that you can't just retcon a character back or out. Looking at you, Dave Filoni. Without properly, taking into account the original storyteller's purpose for that character. I don't know what Rian Johnson's original purpose for Tallie. Maybe she was just there to demonstrate, like, how quickly someone seemingly important can just get wiped out, by anything. Maybe she was just there to be another character. I haven't spoken to Rian Johnson about it, but I do know how other authors have used Tallie, and I think with what they were given, they've done a very good job. So if they were to retcon her death, I think they would have to fuck her up a little bit. Not physically. I don't think, she should come out looking like Two-Face or something. I think she should have, like, some nasty-ass trauma from that. If I were to write, like, a whole narrative around it, I'm not entirely sure what I'd do. You would have to keep her away from the Resistance for, like, the year in between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. She literally could not show up until the end because Poe thinks she's dead. At least thinks she's dead. You know, current canon knows. My delusions thinks. But not only do you have to keep her away, you have to give her something to do. You can't just send her off to have a happy ending. First of all, she can't. If she goes back home, Callie's in the Resistance. She would know that she's alive, and she'd probably tell people. So you can't send her home, right? You can't put her in the Resistance. I think you could have a very good story about how veterans deal with getting back from war. I live in Montana. We have like the highest, I think, like percentage of population that goes into the military, and you see a lot of homeless veterans. And I don't know the specifics around the socioeconomic intricacies that lead to such disastrous side effects of our system, but I think there's a really good story to tell there, like how people who are at war are kind of just shrugged off by society, especially in a society where those people lost. Remember, the Resistance is literally the New Republic's gone. First Order controls the galaxy. That is very well stated in the movies. So she'd basically have to live undercover for like a year, or like a year and a half. And I do think that there are very good stories you could tell with that. I am not an author. I have never published anything. But to say that I do think at the end of the day, you can do anything with any character, and as long as it's written well enough and with enough respect to the authors that wrote before you, I think any character could theoretically be brought back. Theoretically, of course. I don't think they're going to be able to bullshit Luke Skywalker back to life. But for smaller characters, I think it could work. I genuinely do believe that it could work. Certain characters should stay dead. Right? You can't bullshit everyone back to life. You could. It'd probably be a really shitty story, though. It wouldn't make much sense. But I think Tallie is actually in a unique position where she had a semi-important role in The Last Jedi, was taken out in a fairly ambiguous way. Even the novelization doesn't say she died. It was probably just used so that they didn't... Yeah, she died. Just type that out. You know, authors don't like using bland statements like that. But, I think she is in a unique position, and you could tell some very good stories that Star Wars has often, not ignored, but maybe not had the time or the characters to kind of bring that up. You know, Star Wars, especially with the main characters, it's a very hopeful story, and at the end of the day, that is the overlying theme of Star Wars, is how individuals from varying backgrounds, any situation, can bring hope to the galaxy under a fascist dictatorship. How even the little guy can make a big difference. And I think that if it was done properly, you could really explore all those themes in a condensed package. The trauma of war, the loss of life, the hopeful aspect of it. I think you could explore all of those themes in a supposed story where Tallie gets, wakes up and, thinks the Resistance has been destroyed and just kind of tries to move on and can't. I think that'd be a very important aspect of that she physically can't. I think it would be a sad story, and at the end of the day, but it could be a hopeful one too. And you know, I've thought about how they could do it. You know, shoot her off to some backwater world and give her some asshole boss or some shit like that. You know, the cliche stuff. But I think if you gave the right author the right prompts, I think it could be done. And we also should discuss, would that be bad to bring her back? How bad are retcons? A very controversial retcon was very recent in Tales of the Jedi, where Dave Filoni retconned basically the first person of color LGBT character that was like prominent in a story. I know, I believe Lando was confirmed to be pansexual before Solo came out, but that was kind of never brought up. They just kind of implied that he fucked a robot once, and that was it. But I believe, I haven't read the Ahsoka novel, but I do believe that there is an actual LGBT POC in the book, and that got retconned in Tales of the Jedi, which is very unfortunate because it was a very nice piece of inclusivity that Star Wars doesn't always have. Star Wars has always been an inclusive franchise. I believe Lando was a pretty big deal when Empire came out. I am clearly not old enough to know, but George Lucas, as I said in the last video, was a fucking hippie. He is not a someone who restrains themselves from speaking his mind. But George obviously did whatever he wanted, which is fine. He made Star Wars. He can do whatever he could do whatever he wanted. But when you're working in what is now a collaborative project, you need to take into consideration the storytellers that came before you. Not just authors, but movie people, TV people, all of it. Comic book artists and authors, all of it. I don't think Dave Filoni owns Star Wars. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy owns Star Wars. Pablo Hidalgo doesn't own Star Wars. Star Wars is owned by a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate corporation, okay? But I think it is incredibly important that even though you could do something, and you could make it make sense, and you could make it work, that at the end of the day, whatever is the best for the overall story should take precedence. And whether that's leaving a character who may have died too soon dead, or retconning them back to life, or, you know, doing nothing. Leaving it as it is like they did with Star Wars Legends. I think at the end of the day, it's a collaborative effort, and you should respect the storytellers that came before you. I'm repeating myself now. Holy shit, this is a 25-minute video. And I've said nothing. Treat people with respect when it comes, especially in storytelling. Don't overwrite people. Don't try to outdo them with their own material. And bring Tallie back. There's no ambiguity in me now. Bring her back. You can do it, guys. I believe in you. I believe in you. Pablo, if you're watching, I believe in you. You can do it. Alright, I'm done rambling. Bye.